Where are the play the game? Where are the play the game women? Oh, not here. I think it's a very, very, very funny proposal playing with this question, because I think I make the two main questions about climate change and about green transition today. Democracy, the first one, and economic model, the second one. I think there are the two main questions about how we can face this global challenge that is green transition. So, hello, good morning, hello everyone. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to moderate this panel. I think this panel could be a good example about this Expo could propose and about this Expo could help other cities to improve the sustainability model and the green model for the urbanists. Last week, IPCC said the word, we are still on time to face the main global challenge we have, climate change. We still are on time, but we haven't a lot of time. So we need to improve, we need to accelerate, and we need to be more and more ambitious in this green transition. For this reason, I think this is a good topic in this Malaga Expo 2027, and I think this will be an interesting opportunity to know how, from different perspectives, from different point of view, from Colombia, bienvenido, Sergio, Sergio Roldán Gutiérrez, muy buenos días. From Denmark, good morning, Mr. Kiltgaard. A very good experience that we are going to know later. And bonjour, and bienvenue, Monsieur Mouctar from Niger. There are different perspectives, different experience in order to know and in order to deepen a good conversation about what we can accelerate, when we can make more sustainable cities in a short time, because we haven't a lot of time. In order to start this conversation, I think it would be to start with the experience of Sergio from Colombia. Buenos días, Sergio. Un gusto tener aquí a personas de Latinoamérica como uno de esos ejemplos que nos pueden contar cómo la sostenibilidad no solamente es una cuestión de ahorro energético, o cómo las cuestiones de desarrollo sostenible no solamente tienen que ver con el reciclaje,
exclusively on money, and it is not only about recycling things, or it is not only about mobility schemes and mobility models.
Hay un software que hace funcionar todo eso por debajo, que son los ciudadanos y las ciudadanas.
The urban planning is crucial indeed, but there is still something crucial that we need to bear in mind, which is the citizens' commitment. Everyone needs to speak the same language. The citizens should have the opportunity to commit to this project. And they should participate in the different projects which are being implemented in certain cities, because without their active participation, it won't work. That's why I would like Sergio to share his experience, to explain what is going on in Colombia. We will talk about Antioquia. So, Sergio, what did you put in place in your territory, and what did you learn from this experience? What would you like to share with us? So, hello everyone. I would like now to share the Colombian experience with you. I have to say that it is a quite simple topic. But first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to this event. It is extremely, the Malaga project is very inspiring for us. We could clearly see that there is a clear development path going on, that the project has been thoroughly thought, and that it is particularly interesting. I have to say that currently everything is set in our environment in Colombia to fail, because we are in the middle of mountains, there is a lot of drug trafficking, it is quite a violent area, there is a lot of riots, a lot of illegal activities going on And people don't even feel like abiding by the law anymore. In Medellín, we decided to implement a very interesting project. We tried to invest in brains, not in the city per se. Indeed, in Latin America, no one is abiding by the rules. If it is written, you don't sit on this chair, everybody will try to sit on that chair. It is the way it works in Medellín. Medellín is in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of Latin America. But the most important for us was to create a urban structure where the citizen is at the core of the project. We have a citizen-centric approach. We think about the citizen first and the city afterwards. We think that if we invest in citizens, they will learn how to live in the city. If we invest in the city, the citizens will destroy the city afterwards. So we need to have a smart city with smart inhabitants. We need to make sure that this adjective, smart, is tightly linked to the word, the noun, citizen. And in order to do so, we need to implement many different projects. In Medellín, for example, in the year 2000, it was one of the most violent cities in the world. And currently, we are one of the most innovative countries in the world. We won an award for that in Tel Aviv. We are the cities with the most urban projects in the world. How did we manage to do that? Because we started to develop strategies which were feasible on the long term. We should stop building willy-nilly anything without thinking about the future. It is crucial to think about the aftermath.
But we weren't able to follow up on these things after. It's important to think of the afterwards. You have to have a plan for after.
El sector público se encarga de lo básico elemental, agua potable, cloaca, desplazamiento, salud, infraestructura para la movilidad.
It's important for us to invest in the inhabitants because they are the ones who are in charge of respecting the green spaces and all of public spaces. We want everyone who knows Medellín to understand this concept. This is how we've been able to transform Medellín. We put infrastructure where there was nothing, so that the citizens can see the space as it being their space, so that they can see it as more important to dance and to sing than to sell drugs. This was we took this chance, and it's possible to change a territory. Even if we have mountains and it's hard to get around, we put cables to be able to get around despite these mountains. So this is the model that we're putting forward and that everyone knows about Medellín. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sergio, for speaking with us.
No en un problema para la sostenibilidad, no en algo que hay que convencer, sino en un activo que construye sostenibilidad.
How we can change life for citizens when you have citizens who don't respect anything, and when you make it so that citizens are concerned and invested, that's how you do it. That's what you need to share with them, what you're doing. It's important to teach them. And we can see that in Medellín, we see that, in fact, it is the citizens that can teach us a lot themselves, and they can participate and take initiatives.
In a public administration to a Copenhagen in Denmark, and a very special private company. I don't know if you know BLOXHUB, but I recommend you to visit their website, because BLOXHUB, I'm going to read, think themselves not as a company, but as a community, an ecosystem, counting everyone who helps to create better cities worldwide. BLOXHUB, say the website, is the Nordic hub for sustainable urbanization. Yes, but what is really BLOXHUB? And where do you help, or how do you help to build more sustainable cities?
Well, thank you so much. It's first and foremost, it's a Nordic hub, and looking out at all these beautiful people and faces, I think I'm one of the only ones here today representing the Nordics and the Scandinavians, so thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, responsibility. Be careful.
Fantastic market here. No, thank you so much for having me. You're right, it might not be a company, but briefly said, I think I haven't never been to the Madrid Innovation Lab that we heard about in one of the prior keynotes, but I would love to go there. I think BLOXHUB is a little bit like the Madrid Innovation Lab. Shortly, it's a network of companies, of architects, city planners, scientists, startups, corporates, a hub reaching out to some 350 different companies and stakeholders, all united for pushing the sustainable agenda within cities. So the mission is how to create a sustainable urban future. We have a short model. I can introduce it here very, very briefly. It's of 3 M's. It's not the company 3M, but 1 M being the mission. So the mission aligning all the 350 companies is how to create a sustainable urban future. M number 1. M number 2 is a sharing mindset. Very much the sharing mindset that we hear today. We have heard this morning so fantastically brilliant case stories. There are thousands of case stories out there in the world to be picked up and to be learned from and to be shared. So what we do is to have a mindset of sharing among the 350 companies. And lastly, the 3rd M is matchmaking. That's our role in order to create access to partners, to other ecosystems in the world, in order to share knowledge and in order to co-develop and collaborate on coming up with new solutions for creating a better urban future. And we are based in Copenhagen because Copenhagen is, of course, my home city. Please come. But it's also an example of what happens to a city and a city mindset when you realize that we cannot carry on like we've been used to throughout the industrial age. The fact that we are spending much more resources than we regenerate has to stop. So this fundamental transformation has to come. And I think the Expo in 2027 in Malaga will, of course, push that agenda. And it's very, very important. This morning I woke up to some Danish news telling the story about what you all know as the World Overshoot Day. Of course, you are familiar to that concept. The World Overshoot Day being the day where your country has spent more resources than you can actually get back and regenerate for the rest of the year. It's a little bit like a bank account. You're broke, so the rest of the year you have to spend from your credits. The World Overshoot Day is, for those of you who don't know it, the 28th of July. So there's a little time running. My problem is that the World Overshoot Day in Denmark is today. So I'm actually representing a country today, yes, on the 28th of March. And for those of you who don't know, I just took a couple of figures. France, that's the 5th of May, and Spain is the 12th of May. So you have a little more time. The point being here that we need to come up with a fundamental different mindset in how we use our resources, of course. And as we heard all the statistics this morning, the cities are contributing to 2/3 of the CO2 emission, part of the problem, but of course, in an innovative mindset, also part of the solution. So of course we have to look at the cities, of course we have to face the cities in order for them to completely transform. But I think a key word we haven't mentioned this morning is actually the word transform and transformation, because in the global north, to be honest, we don't necessarily have to build that much more. We need to make urban transformation much more than we need to new build. It's something completely different from the rest of the world, which you heard so beautifully from some of the keynotes this morning. But I think the notion of urban transformation is a notion that we will have to turn to in the future. The notion of urban transformation is the fact that we have to renovate, the fact that 95% of all buildings are up and ready for renovation. Only 5% of the activity going on within the construction industry is actually focusing on new build. The 95% of all activity is focused on renovation. So there's a renovation wave out there, and there is an urban transformation in order to rethink and rebuild the cities. So therefore also I think that the beauty of the circle in the building in Malaga and the Expo in Malaga is to me also symbolizing the circular way of thinking, of course. Circular construction, circular economy, circular mindsets. That I think is the way forward. So we need to push that agenda much more, and that is what we try to do on an everyday basis in BLOXHUB in Copenhagen. Very, very briefly, what we do with all the different companies that we work with and scientists is we try to push the mindset of talking about urban transformation in three different views, so to speak. We look at the city as a system, zooming out, talking about infrastructure as a system, waste management as a system, circular construction as a system, in order to push the agenda of thinking of the urban transformation from a more holistic point of view. And I think, again, this is, as you have noted, a completely PowerPoint-free intro from my side, but we have seen lots of cases this morning on actually doing just that. Secondly, we look at cities as nature. The fact that we have to look at biodiversity. There is a mounting biodiversity crisis out there, and we have to take care of that. We have to reconcile cities with nature. Why? Not because that we know that if we are focusing on urban greening and biodiversity in cities, we will make up the balance of actually capturing CO2 more than we omit. Of course not, cities cannot contribute to that. But the mental model of having the majority of the Earth population inside cities and suburban areas with a green mindset, that I think will push this transformation of going to a much more biodiversified future. And lastly, cities as communities. And that is something we truly and utterly believe in, coming from a Nordic standpoint. We've seen lots of great cases. Also, you just described one of your cases on how to include the citizens. I think citizen inclusion models being rethought, reimagined is fundamental for a sustainable development in cities. So when we try to get in dialogue with all these different kinds of companies that are pushing the sustainable agenda, we like to focus on cities as systems, cities as nature, and cities as communities, as sort of a holistic view of really trying to transform urban regeneration, which I believe is the future agenda, and hopefully the agenda that will be pushed in Malaga in 2027, being not only an expo and an event going on for 3 months, but hopefully being the start of a new movement, reaching out to the variety of stakeholders throughout the world. And I think that's the beauty of an expo, if I might add that sort of personal reflection. I think the beauty of an expo is not only to have the expo, but also to push and start out a journey being visualized here with the game, which is a great innovation and a great tool in order to push the dialogue also amongst the next generation, which are the ones that has to push what we're talking about today. So hopefully, cross my fingers, the Expo 27 will go to Malaga and that will start the movement. Thank you.
Cross our fingers. Thank you so much, Torben. Circular economy, green transition, the donuts model, Roxanne. Do you think we can think green transition and sustainability such as a way to close the circle, the social circle, the political circle, and the economic circle, maybe?
Well, I think the obvious answer is yes, but there's a long way, of course, because there are so many dimensions in this, to be honest, political dialogue. We heard it from some of the keynotes this morning. Of course, there's a political dimension. Who are the polluters and who are the ones that pays for this pollution? I think the vague but the right answer is that we have to shift the mindsets of the future generations And if we look at who are demonstrating, who are up against the political regimes and paradigms, so to speak, on a global scale, that is the youth. So hopefully there is a chance in the future. I really strongly advocate for the fact that we are thinking along the lines of circular mindsets, looking at local cases, implementing great ideas locally, but keeping this global mindset, because we are not only focusing on cities, on nations, we're looking at the planet. So it's the planetary boundaries being introduced with the donut economy. That is the one thing we should have in mind. Every time we take just a little bit step forward at a local basis, it has consequences for the global planet.
Merci beaucoup, Torben. Merci, de nada. And bonjour, Monsieur Mouctar, Monsieur Mamoudou Mouctar.
Hello, Mr. Mouctar.
À l'Afrique.
From Europe to Africa. We're going from Europe to Africa.
Sur la ville durable, la ville intelligente.
What can you tell us about sustainable cities?
Pour définir qu'est-ce que c'est ça la sustainabilité?
Please explain to us what is sustainability.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais d'abord vous remercier de cette.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this invitation and for this initiative. The ambassador of Spain has already done a campaign in Niger to defend France's candidature. I just wanted to congratulate you for the work you have done and to congratulate you for this initiative and for having embarked on this challenge to transform cities, which will have an effect everywhere in the world. Niger is a country in the Sahel, in the West Africa, and it's right in the heart of Africa, with a population of almost 25 million people and about 167 kilometers squared. It is a large country, and there are a lot of challenges, human challenges. Countries in Africa look a lot like one another in terms of urbanism. Niger took a decision very early to find a balance between urban and rural. And they did this by constantly doing work to develop in agriculture, in water, and in services to the population. However, they also put into place some policies in the centers of the cities for urbanism. In Africa, we don't want people to leave rural areas to end up in the cities. So the work we have done over the last 10 years, it's been good work, and it has allowed the Niger government to work on the sustainability of its cities. You asked me if it's difficult to create a sustainable city. I think in Africa it's less complicated to do that than it would be in Europe. In Europe, I wouldn't say we don't have accomplished cities, but if we have to do that in Europe, we would have to go back and change many things, many techniques. But in Africa, the cities are being built as we speak. I'm not going to say that it's easy in Africa, but it is less complicated, I believe. In Niger, what we are doing, we are part of an experience. And it's pushed us towards a certain program. It was during COVID. It was where we saw the first case of COVID in the capital. So we closed down the city. But after a month, no one could live like that anymore. There wasn't enough food for everyone. There was not enough tomatoes, not enough lettuce. There were so many things that we were missing. And so we realized quite quickly that the city is there, but it's not resilient. We needed to think about how we could create a resilient city that could make it through a difficult period like the COVID pandemic. So of course we ended up opening up the city, and COVID ended up spreading all over the place. So we were inspired at the time, because as you know, in Africa, one of the things that we can do is we can use the success stories, and we can learn from other people's mistakes as well when it comes to urban development. So we developed urban agriculture. We developed the concept of a green city. Today we heard someone speak of super islands. We've already started doing this in Niamey. So we're putting a maximum amount of plants, and we're getting the participation of the citizens to help with the maintenance of these plants. We have organized a lot of women are unemployed in Niger, and so we have created a cooperative to give people what they need to be able to grow plants to grow food in Niger. So we have fruit trees or trees that have medicinal values. And this gives work to the unemployed, and it also makes it so that the city is greener. I also really liked what Sergio said. He spoke about investing in citizens. We have a program that finds associations, NGOs, and we take a theme, for example, environment or climate change or waste management, or also giving a second life to waste. Another aspect that we're developing is the evolution of techniques. Our city is not static. However, a lot of times our techniques are static. We need our techniques to evolve with our cities. We think that, the only thing that we can do for managing wastewater is having our underground water systems, but we have to think of perhaps other solutions, more modern solutions. We have to give the environment more space, because cities belong to man, but they also belong to the environment and to water. So we need to find the urban balance by leaving space for the environment, for water, so that the three can live together in harmony. When we talk about urban flooding, it's because we are building cities without water in mind. And so we are trying to change this in Niger. We are also developing new jobs. We are creating new an identity so they can have an identity to our territory. If citizens don't have this mindset, well then this development will not be possible. Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough time to go into the details. However, I hope that I will be able to go into detail in Malaga. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was very interesting, the link that you made between COVID and safety, because I think that we can learn a lot of things. A lot of things that we used during the COVID period, we can use this for the ecological transformation and for sustainable development. So now we thought it would maybe be interesting to look at an international organization now. This is someone who has been studying these trends on urban planning that we see in different cities for more sustainability. This is why Ana Beatriz Monteiro is here today. I would like to thank her because she made a really big effort to be here today. I was hoping you could give us a global vision. Today we saw lots of examples of good practices. We spoke about different experiences. You're a pioneer in this, and it's been a long time that you've been studying this. What are the tendencies that exist? First of all, I would like to thank Malaga for having invited me to this event and for the collective effort that they have made to put forward an urgent policy, which is making cities more sustainable. The candidature of Malaga, it's crucial, it's primordial, it's very urgent, and it's very important. This is not only about people becoming conscious of the importance but also of this, but also to put forward a very deep transformation. I would like to speak to you of the World Cities Report, which was published by the UN in 2022. I would like to start by saying that the prognosis of this report is very worrisome. We are not going in the right direction here. I encourage you to go to their website to upload this file. It's really important for us to always base what we do on data before we take decisions. And in this report, we see facts and tendencies. And many of them are unfortunately not good news. There are some facts which are very worrisome. This is why the topic that was chosen by Malaga is so important and such a good time for it to come out. So this report, in the worst case scenario in city development, there will be disastrous consequences for cities, which will lead to economical uncertainties and environmental problems, and vulnerabilities will get worse and worse. On the grid of urbanization, it's a rate of urbanization. The largest growth of the largest urban growth will happen in the poorest regions. and in the regions that have the least means to plan for this growth. When it comes to poverty and inequality, if we don't act on all levels, poverty and inequality will be the reality for many cities to come. When it comes to urban economy, cities that grow faster grow without the support of urban structuralism. And so the productivity that is generated is not distributed in an equal way. When it comes to
tienen un limitado éxito en cuanto a reducción de desigualdad urbana y a alcanzar la inclusión social.
urban inequalities.
Tiene todas las posibilidades de persistir en un futuro próximo sin una intervención apropiada.
People to move up
En cuanto a políticas públicas, el COVID-19 ha puesto de manifiesto
If this doesn't change, we have to do something. When it comes to COVID-19, this pandemic really highlighted these inequalities and it accentuated them in cities. Because COVID-19 marginalized populations that were already marginalized.
No se ha llegado con suficiente progreso, con suficiente éxito a la gobernanza multinivel. Es decir, hay muchos temas, ¿no?, que vienen recogidos. Yo he
When it comes to governance, we had issues establishing a multi-level governance system. As mentioned in this report, different pieces of news were available, and they are not great pieces of news, to be honest.
UN Habitat ha hecho un esfuerzo muy grande para listar
UN Habitat
¿no? Están listados.
Did the most in order to create a list of the different issues that we're facing.
Los SDG 11, el objetivo, el ODS 11, con sus metas.
Furthermore, we have to deal with specific expectations. We have to deal with specific identified goals. We know exactly where we're going. We need to start dealing with these listed, established issues in order to see how we can manage to reach the goals that we set. The answer of those challenges lays in town planning. I would like you to download this report from UN Habitat. It is quite interesting, to be honest. Thanks to this report, you'll be able to be aware of the current situation. Unfortunately, we're not saying anything new because this issue has been existing for the past 7 years, or at least we have been talking about it openly for the past 7 years.
Gratificante, como se dice en español, comprobar.
And it is extremely rewarding.
Es un hecho que está sirviendo de modelo y de guía, como tiene que ser la nueva agenda urbana para las acciones y las iniciativas que se están llevando a cabo.
To see that it is the right model and the right roadmap to follow in order to manage to succeed in the actions that we set. Beforehand, we said that UN Habitat is always also working in Madrid. I'm mentioning Madrid because Carlos mentioned Madrid beforehand as well. He talked about what has been made in Paris as well. Veronica talked about Ciudad Juárez. There are a lengthy list of the different regions, of the different communities, of the different countries, the different neighborhoods.
Entonces, a la vez que vemos
which
que hay
are
un progreso
currently
grande, vemos que
implementing
hay mucho que hacer,
actions
hay mucho
which are
por hacer.
serving those goals.
Entonces,
All those
en
territories are quite
conclusión,
proactive.
la nueva
Each
agenda
time
urbana
we have a look at what's
trata,
happening in the field, we
como
see
todos
that there's
saben,
still a long way to go,
de
however, that we
cómo,
still have so many
de
things
los
to do.
pilares, las dimensiones urbana, social, económica, medioambiental y social.
To conclude, that's why I would like to highlight that we need to take into account the social, cultural, industrial differences in order to reach success in our different projects. It is exactly what we're doing. And to conclude, I would like to tell you that we are delighted to see that the Malaga candidacy is completely aligned
para catalizar la implementación de esta nueva agenda urbana. Muchísimas
with town planning challenges. We need to do exactly what is needed in order to reach our Agenda 2030 goals. It is now time to rethink what a city is. It is a perfect opportunity for us to rethink what the city models should be. I personally think that it is crucial to highlight all the ongoing actions done in order to serve this purpose. Never before had we a clearer vision of what we should do. And now we need to carry on that path. So thank you very much for talking about governance as well, because it is a key topic in this matter. And we need to talk about it at many different levels. In the public sector, the private sector, the semi-private sector, we need to take into account the specificities of each territory. And it was a delight to hear what you had to say about it.
What do you think Expo Malaga 2027 should do in order to help cities to accelerate green transition? Only one thing. What do you think is the most interesting, the most important issues to accelerate it, to accelerate green transitions in city? And what do you ask to Expo 2027 Malaga in order to help you? Sergio, only one.
Bueno, pues Málaga tiene una ventaja gigantesca. Esta mañana hemos hablado entre
Malaga has a clear advantage. We have already talked about it beforehand with Alfonso, Salvador, and Carlos. Most of the time, we try to say that we need to do what to do and how to do it. And at Malaga, we would like to insist on how we should do things. We are talking about the proposal of a territorial change for a city. We are talking about the pre-project, the phase during the project, and the post-project phase. Currently, we are already dealing with all of those topics. Currently, it is easier to have access to Malaga than other spaces. If we are currently looking at, the current proposal, Malaga is a great proposal for the Expo 2027, and Malaga is completely able to answer the how in order to see what we should do. We need to find different examples. Okay, so it is your turn, Torben.
The presentation of the Expo 27 model, so to speak, is, in my view and my hope, a model for how you can innovate cities in the future. I noted down that there will be an urban laboratory, there will be an urban innovation marketplace, and we will focus on cities, but also with a global mind, as I stressed. Very briefly, that is what we try to do in Copenhagen, because I represent a company, a platform, a co-working hub that is a neutral space for city developers, for politicians, for startups, for techs, for companies, big and small. And we see a growing interest in other cities of creating these free spaces, probably also the Madrid Innovation Lab, I take it, where people can come, share, co-develop and scale the solutions. That is not something that will solve any problem, especially not what was just stated in the World Cities report, of course, but it is a little bit step forward in order for people to collaborate and to share So networks, the C40 network amongst others, is a great platform to share the solutions across cities. I hope that the Expo 2027 will be the beginning of that innovation design in cities for the future.
Thank you.
One word, right?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Only one, the most important issues only.
Oui, merci. Je vais dire.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like very quickly to highlight the fact that I was having a look at the program of the Expo at Malaga, and I would like to say that each African city can see how interesting it would be for their own case. As mentioned before, we need to adopt a global point of view, and it has already been defined. And as mentioned as well, we should take into account the local specificities of each city, because each city is different. What my expectation is that we need to create sharing ground where it is possible to exchange whatever we need to do, and allowing us to keep on exchanging on our strengths and successes and failures even after the exhibition reaches to an end. What I'd like to say is that Malaga will be for a very long time an innovation capital. It will be a place where all those ideas will emerge. Even if we don't get to see one another in person, I think that thanks to new technologies, we can keep on exchanging with one another and keep on and carry on this dialogue. Okay, thank you very much.
Gracias. Bueno, aparte de lo que hemos dicho de la gobernanza, yo creo que la candidatura también tiene un aspecto muy interesante que es el laboratorio urbano.
Thank you
que pone las personas
very much. I would like to say that this candidacy is particularly interesting because we are dealing with the urban laboratory, and it is a way for us to really show that the citizens should be at the core of sustainable development. When we deal with this system, it shows that people should be at the core of the innovative lab. I really jotted down the 4 requests that you expressed today, and I hope that we'll be able to deploy everything in Malaga. I hope that the Expo will take place in Malaga. And this morning, we managed to tackle all the items of the agenda we were supposed to talk about. We've talked about economics, we talked about governance, we talked about the fights against the social model inequalities, we talked about inclusion, we talked about different political models that we could use in order to reach our goals. We've also mentioned the fight against climate change and the relation it has with politics. It is indeed particularly important to bear in mind that different political tendencies, political trends could start to appear. So, of course, we need to rethink cities in order to reach our common goals. My colleague said that the fight against climate change was indeed a global matter, and it is a global challenge, but the fight should take place locally in order to fight this global matter. So that's why we need networks, we need platforms, we need to deal with a global approach in order to tackle those local actions. Thank you very much for participating in this event, and good luck for the Malaga candidacy.